Chapter 7. Minerals your body needs. The minerals in your body have many important functions to perform. Calcium and phosphorus are needed for building strong bones and teeth. Without these, the body would quickly collapse. Other minerals act somewhat like sparking plugs for certain important chemical reactions. Still others form intricate combinations with proteins, and thus are needed by the enzyme systems of the body. Many different minerals are found within the body, most of them in extremely small amounts, known as trace metals. Some like cobalt and copper are important. Others are so rare, we are not even sure what some of them do. But there are four minerals: calcium, phosphorus, iron, and iodine, that are very important. We need much larger quantities of these, and so they must always be included in the diet, otherwise we would soon become weak and sick. Calcium. Calcium, or lime, is the most abundant mineral in the body. Almost all of the calcium is found in the bones, where it provides strength and stability to the whole system. A small quantity of calcium is always carried in the bloodstream, where, among other things, it helps to prevent serious hemorrhages. Calcium is also necessary for nerves and muscles. When the calcium level in the body drops below a safe level, the nerves become extremely irritable and the muscles go into spasm. Cramping pains may then be felt in various parts of the body, particularly in the larger muscles of the legs. But nowhere is calcium more important than in the muscles of the heart. When the calcium is reduced in the bloodstream, the heart quickly loses its power, becomes irregular, and may even stop beating altogether. Calcium is vital to health. 48 minerals your body needs. Bone diseases involving calcium. In the bones, two minerals, calcium and phosphorus, are combined to give strength and firmness to the skeleton or bony structure of the body. Many chemical reactions of the body require both calcium and phosphorus. Hence there is a constant interchange of these minerals between the bones and the bloodstream. Young mothers need extra calcium, particularly during pregnancy and the nursing period. Calcium is important for children and young people whose bones are growing rapidly. In the body there is a close chemical relationship between calcium, phosphorus, and vitamin D. A deficiency in any of these may produce a serious disturbance in the frameworks of the body. In children this disease is known as rickets. In adults it is called osteomalacia. Infants with rickets are restless at night and tend to sleep poorly. The constant movement of the head on the pillow may wear off the hair. If this disease condition continues, the child's normal development is retarded. He suffers from marked weakness in the bones and is considerable delay in his sitting up, crawling, and walking. The weight of his body may bend the bones and joints out of shape, causing such deformities as bow legs, pigeon breast, and knock knees. In adults, osteomalacia may cause the bones of the legs and thighs to lose their normal mineral content. They become soft and bend under the weight of the body. The pelvic bones are flattened and the pelvic outlet narrowed, a very serious problem during childbirth. The spinal bones may be shortened, so that the individual loses height and becomes dwarfed and stooped. Both rickets and osteomalacia can be cured, or at least brought under control, by taking an adequate amount of calcium, phosphorus, and vitamin D. But some of the deformities are like to remain if the condition is allowed to continue over a long period time. Best sources of calcium are milk, dairy products, green vegetables, peas, beans, soybeans, eggs, lentils, potatoes, and fish. In other words, any well-balanced diet usually has sufficient calcium to meet our needs. People who are well supplied with calcium during their childhood years not only live longer but also are less likely to develop some of the more serious diseases of later life. However, calcium deficiency 49 cannot be absorbed unless we have an adequate supply of vitamin D in the diet. Older doctors were right in prescribing moderate amounts of fish liver oil and similar substances for babies and young children. This is an excellent source of vitamin D. When combined with the foods mentioned above, it will prevent serious bone deformities, such as rickets and osteomalacia. However, the individual must also have sufficient sunshine to derive the greatest benefit from the vitamin D and calcium in his diet. Phosphorus. Phosphorus is another essential mineral, having much to do with the functions of all body cells. Phosphorus plays a large part in many important chemical reactions. It is associated with other important substances, such as enzymes, proteins, and carbohydrates. Phosphorus is necessary for all the muscles. Without phosphorus in your system you couldn't even lift an eyebrow or move a finger. 50 minerals your body needs. Phosphorus also helps to maintain the normal acid-base balance of the body. It is essential in building sound healthy teeth and strong bones. Sources: phosphorus is found in all the foods mentioned above as sources of calcium. It is also present in whole grain cereals, legumes, and nuts, and is particularly abundant in milk, where it is associated with calcium in just the proportion for young children and nursing mothers. Phosphorus is needed especially for patients who are recovering from serious illness and surgical operations. Iron in the bloodstream. Another very important mineral is iron, entering as it does into some of the most vital reactions of life. The actual amount of iron in your system is not very great, but what that iron does is almost fantastic. Nothing in all the discoveries of the space age can be compared with the marvelous reactions of iron in your own body. Without this metal could not begin to live for even a moment. Most of the iron is found in the red blood cells, where it forms part of that very complex protein known as hemoglobin. This is the red substance that gives color to the blood. It carries the oxygen to the tissues and keeps us alive. Red blood cells are extremely small. Normally there are around 5 million of them in a drop of blood no larger than the head of a pin. These tiny cells are rounded on the edges and hollow in the middle, something like a disc or plate. This provides a relatively large surface compared with the volume of the cell, making for an easier exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Each red cell contains 250 million molecules of hemoglobin, and 1 billion atoms of iron. In the few seconds during which the tiny red cell is passing through the lung, it picks up 1 billion molecules of oxygen from the air in the lung. At the same time it drops 1 billion molecules of carbon dioxide, which it has brought in from the tissues of the body. This unwanted carbon dioxide is then removed from the body as we exhale or breathe out. So we must keep breathing fresh air to supply the red cells with oxygen to replace the carbon dioxide. We call this respiration. Most cells in the body live for many years, perhaps even for life. Not so the red cells of the blood. They soon wear out from straining of constantly whirling through the blood vessels of the body. Nutrition for blood. 51. The red cells last only about 4 months, and then are destroyed. This means that new cells must be produced in large numbers to replace those that can no longer be used. To meet this need, your body has to make many millions of new red cells every minute, just to keep up the normal supply. If you lose blood through hemorrhage or for any other reason, you must produce many more. Each tiny red cell carries its own little portion of iron, which the body measures out with such exactness that each cell has just enough iron for the work it has to do, and no more. So careful is nature not to waste anything. How red cells work. Everyone knows that iron rusts when it is exposed to the air. Rusting is even more rapid when the air is damp. This chemical reaction is known as oxidation. A molecule of iron attaches itself to a molecule of oxygen from the air, forming iron oxide. This is exactly what happens when the red blood cells pass through the lungs. The air within the lungs is warm and damp, and the iron in the red cells actually rusts as it passes through the lung. All this happens with split-second timing. From there the cells are carried by the bloodstream to the heart, and then pumped to all the distant parts of the body, always carrying their load of oxygen. Out in the tissues the reverse process takes place. The hemoglobin or pigment in the red cell readily gives up its load of oxygen and picks up a supply of carbon dioxide. These carbon dioxide-loaded cells are then carried back to the heart and pumped to the lungs, where they drop their load of carbon dioxide and pick up a fresh supply of oxygen. The whole remarkable process requires just the right conditions within the body to operate efficiently. Naturally, anything that interferes with the flow of air into the lungs will cut down the amount of oxygen reaching the cells, and will reduce the amount of work we can do. Something similar to this happens when we go up into high altitudes where the oxygen is much less abundant. We then have to breathe harder to get the oxygen we need. Thus we see that iron is very important to the well-being of all parts of the body. Most of the iron from the worn-out cells is not discarded, but is separated from the hemoglobin in the liver and spleen and used over and over again. However, a certain amount of 52 minerals your body needs. Iron may be lost from the body for various reasons such as bleeding, hemorrhoids, injuries, menstruation, hookworm infestation, or stomach ulcers. The latter often develop when a person uses aspirin too frequently, or when he smokes on an empty stomach. Sources of iron: many foods contain iron in one form or another, although not all of the iron may be absorbed. Green leaves, eggs, apricots, raisins, potatoes, oatmeal, whole grain cereals and liver are all good sources of iron. Any well-chosen diet probably contains enough iron for our needs, provided we are able to absorb it. If one tends to be anemic, it may be wise to take some extra iron in the form of ferrous sulfate tablets, but these should be prescribed by one's own physician. Iodine. Actually, we only have a few grains of iodine in the body, but what we do have is important to the well-being of the whole system. All kinds of things may happen when the iodine in the body gets out of balance. Like other minerals, iodine is found in the foods we eat. From the digestive tract, the iodine passes into the bloodstream and is soon picked up by the thyroid. This is a relatively large gland located in the front lower part of the neck, just below the voice box or Adam's apple. There the iodine is changed into thyroxine, a powerful hormone with many important functions to perform all over the body. Thyroxine regulates all the activities of the various organs, it controls the rate at which a person grows, and even has some effect on how long he may live. People with too little thyroxine tend to feel the cold. Those with too much may feel too hot. The thyroid gland also controls the condition of the skin. When a person has too little thyroid, the eyelids become puffy, and the face dull and apathetic. The hair may be coarse, dry, and brittle, the tongue swollen, and the speech hoarse and slurred. A young child whose thyroid is not functioning properly may develop into a dwarf with coarse features, thick lips, flat nose, and protruding tongue, a truly pitiable sight, known as cretinism. This trouble stems from a deficiency of iodine in the mother's diet during pregnancy. Such a child can now be helped, provided treatment is started early enough. The same conditions, hypothyroidism, may come on later in life, and also after complete removal of the thyroid gland. Such a iodine and salt 53. Patient may have to take a certain amount of thyroid every day for the rest of his life. Tumors of the thyroid gland occur frequently in certain areas of the world and often seem to run in families. These are discussed under goiter in chapter 47. However, a person with a slight swelling in the neck may not actually need to have a surgical operation. A few thyroid tablets may bring the gland back to normal activity, if the conditions is mild. Prevention of thyroid trouble is relatively easy today. Iodized salt is available almost everywhere, and in most cases it will prevent the trouble before it starts. Other good sources of iodine include seafoods and all vegetables grown near the seacoast. Extra iodine is often needed during the rapidly growing years of childhood and adolescence, and also during pregnancy. Food selected from a wide 54 minerals your body needs. Area usually contain enough iodine to meet all normal needs, and if not, iodized salt will make up for any deficiency. Common table salt, known as sodium chloride, is highly important in maintaining the normal acid-base balance of the body. Without a certain amount of salt in the system we could not live for long. If a person has kidney or heart trouble, his salt intake may have to be somewhat restricted, especially if he also has high blood pressure. In any case, Table salt should be used in moderation. Many people use far too much. They pour it on their foods, completely covering the natural taste. All this unnecessary salt puts an extra burden on the kidneys, and may even raise a person's blood pressure. A sensible person will always be moderate in the use of salt. Edema or swelling of the legs and ankles may occur when there is too much salt, or sodium, in the body. This is due to incomplete elimination of salt through the kidneys. The blood pressure may rise and may not go down again until the excess sodium has been removed from the body. On the other hand, extra salt may sometimes be needed during hot weather. Heavy sweating removes large amounts of salt from the body, producing painful muscle cramps. During hot weather, most people, even those with mild heart trouble, can take little more salt, especially if they feel unduly tired or aching in the muscles. Salt also encourages thirst, so that they will drink more water, which they need. Preserving your minerals. When preparing food, be sure that valuable minerals are not lost through careless. Too often these important nutrients are thrown away with the water in which the foods were cooked. Minerals and also vitamins may be lost by too vigorous peeling, and overcooking. Hints for the cook. Do not cook vegetables any more than absolutely necessary. Use as little water as possible for the actual cooking. This will help to save those minerals so often thrown away. Water from vegetables should be used for making soups, curries, gravies, or for flavoring other foods. These important minerals are necessary to good health. Don't be careless in the way you prepare foods. Save the minerals and the family will enjoy better health. What is more, they will probably have fewer medical and dental bills to